Hello everybody, and today we are going to be talking about 3 facts about our solar system. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Now first we're going to be talking about the planets in our solar system, and of course we will be including Pluto in this. Let's start off with Mercury, since it's the closest planet to the Sun. Mercury is actually named after the Roman god Mercury of the same name, or as you may better know him by his Greek name, Hermes, the messenger god of, well, the gods. Mercury is actually the smallest planet in our solar system, well, since Pluto is no longer considered a planet. And as I said earlier, it is the closest planet to the Sun. This may cause some problems if you wish to view it, as its rising and setting are about 2 hours within the Sun, which means if you don't have aid with your eyes, you're not going to be able to see it very good, as it's not exactly viewable when it's completely dark either. This might surprise you, but it actually does rain on Mercury, though not exactly the type of rain that we are used to. It actually rains electrons on Mercury, which causes an X-ray auroras. And we only know this from the Bepi-Colombo probe. It was designed as a collaboration between the European Space Agency and Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. Mercury actually rotates very slowly and orbits the Sun very quickly. So a day on Mercury lasts 59 days, but a year lasts 88 days. Now let's move on to Venus, which is the second planet from the Sun, and is the closest in size and mass to our own planet, Earth. Now, although Venus is only the second planet from the Sun, it is way hotter than Mercury, as it contains more greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, and its clouds are actually made out of sulfuric acid. And I'm guessing you can already guess what it rains on Venus, since you know what the clouds are made of. That's right, sulfuric acid. For you that don't know, is an extremely corrosive and dangerous chemical to have anywhere near skin or anything, as it starts dissolving near instantly anything it touches. Another interesting thing about Venus is that though it orbits the Sun in the same direction as all the other planets counterclockwise, it actually spins or rotates on its axis clockwise. Nobody really knows why it does this for sure, but one theory, or the most popular theory, states that it used to rotate just like the other planets until it got hit by something huge and switched its rotation. Venus is also named after the Roman goddess Venus of the same name, although you might know her better by her Greek name, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. Venus can also be seen an hour after sunset or before sunrise, and is usually the brightest object in the sky, as long as you don't count the moon, of course, as the moon is the brightest object in the sky at night. Unlike Mercury, Venus both rotates and orbits very slowly, as a day on Venus is 243 Earth days, and a year is 225 Earth days. Now we're going to Earth, which is the third planet from the Sun, and our home sweet home, as it is one of the only planets that we know so far that is able of supporting life. And though you may not like it, or you may like it for some reason, Earth is one of the only planets in our solar system that doesn't get its name from a Roman/Greek god. It's actually an Old English-German word that just means the ground. It comes from the Old English words or and erda. In my opinion, I always found it a little strange that it meant ground, since, 71% of the Earth's surface is water. Speaking of water, that's basically what rains here. Unlike most of the planets which have some horrific thing falling from the sky, our planet has something nice and simple, like water. Of course, there are some instances where that water can become detrimental, like in hurricanes and rainstorms, but that occasionally happens and is not that often happening. Of course, we also have snow that can pile up and cause tremendous damage as well, but that doesn't happen that often too. Then again, snow can also compile into large balls which can rain down on called, sleet and hail that can damage things, but that doesn't happen too often too. Of course, then again, there's also instances where carbon dioxide pollution causes the rain to become sulfuric acid and rain down upon us, but that is even rarer. See what I'm saying? Is it too late for us to, go to another planet? It is? Damn. Oh well, let's continue. Contrary to unpopular belief, the Earth is not flat. Yep, it's round. Well, actually, it's not exactly completely round. it is actually roughly round, as there are a few corners that are a little dented in. That makes it look as though it's been hit a few times. Lastly, let's go through the times. As you are probably aware of, one Earth day is one Earth day, and an Earth year is 365 days. Next, we're going to go look at Mars, named after the Roman god Mars, or as you may know him, everybody's least favorite Greek god, well, most people's least favorite, unless you got some issues, Ares, the Greek god of the distasteful aspects of war, bloodshed, violence, and constant and battle, horrific things happening in battle, the stuff. Mars is also known as the red planet. The reason why it is red, though, is because iron-rich minerals within its soil rust over time or oxidize, causing it to get that red-like appearance. This red coloring is also believed why they named it after Mars or Ares, because its reddish color looks as though it's a bloody battlefield. Keeping on the topic of Ares and Greek mythology while we're at it, Mars also has two weirdly shaped moons named Phobos and Deimos. The way these names go back to Greek mythology is because these are actually the names of two of Ares' actual, fully godly children, who he had with Aphrodite, called Phobos and Deimos themselves. Deimos represented terror and dread, while Phobos represented panic, flight, and rout. And these two would usually always accompany their father whenever he went into a battlefield to stir up things a little bit more. Mars and Earth also have something very similar in common. They both have polar ice caps. However, while Earth's ice caps are made out of water-based ice, Mars's ice caps are also water-based ice, but frozen carbon dioxide, or dry ice, accumulates in a comparably thin layer, about 1 meter thick, on the northern cap of the pole in the northern winter, while its south pole has a permanent dry ice cap or cover about 8 meters thick. Since Mars is only the fourth planet from the Sun and not too far away from Earth, it has a similar day to us, meaning that its day is only approximately 40 minutes longer than our own. However, Mars orbits the Sun a lot slower than Earth, so its year is 687 Earth days. Now let's move on to the fifth planet from the Sun, Jupiter, who is named after the Roman god Jupiter, who you may know better as Greek god Zeus. King of the skies, god of all the gods in Greek mythology, etc., etc. However, it is quite strange that this planet is named after Jupiter, the god of the sky, since it's mostly composed of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium. However, the deeper you go into Jupiter, the more temperature and pressure increases, which leads to a strange phenomenon. These conditions leads to the hydrogen gas becoming a liquid, which gives Jupiter the largest ocean in our solar system. Now, have you ever looked at Jupiter and wondered what that big red spot on it is? Well, it's a huge pressure region in Jupiter's atmosphere that creates an anticyclonic storm. For those of you who don't really know what that is, think of it like a hurricane on Earth, except way bigger. How big, you might ask? It is almost twice the size of Earth. And if you're thinking, wow, that's big, well, you're correct, because Jupiter is actually the biggest planet in our solar system. Speaking of big, if anybody asks you what these four planets have in common other than being big, the correct answer would be that they all have rings. That's right, both Jupiter and Neptune have rings. However, their rings are so flimsy that they can't exactly be viewed very easily with normal stargazing instruments. Interesting thing, Jupiter actually has the shortest day in our solar system, as it spins very quickly and orbits the Sun very slowly, as its day is actually 9 hours and 56 minutes, and its year is actually 12 Earth years. Now let's go to Saturn, the sixth planet from the Sun, and named after the Greek god / Titan god of time, Kronos. The guy that ate his children because of prophecy and so on. But let's keep going. We already discussed this stuff in a other video that only a few weeks ago, so let's keep going. As you're probably guessing by now, Saturn is the Roman name for Kronos, but let's keep going on. Saturn, the planet, as you're probably guessing by now, is a lot similar to Jupiter the planet, as it actually has a large amount of pressure and is mostly gas, mostly hydrogen and helium. However, unlike Jupiter, Saturn's core is actually made out of dense metals like nickel and iron, surrounded by rocky material, and of course other compounds, solidified by intense pressure, while we don't exactly know what's in Jupiter's center. However, despite this metal in Saturn, it is actually the least dense planet in the solar system. How less of a density does it have? Well, if you could find a tub of water or something with water big enough to fit the ginormous planet in, it would actually float in the water. This is because its density is that of less than water. Now, I don't know if I need to say this or not, but Saturn's rings are not exactly solid, as they appear from Earth. They're actually made out of giant chunks of rock and ice and meteors and asteroids, of which range from the size of small specks to larger than buildings. This of course goes for all the other planets with rings as well. Saturn also rotates or spins very quickly and orbits the Sun very slowly, so a day on Saturn is 10 hours and 34 minutes, and a year is 29.4 Earth years. Next, we have Uranus, or Uranus, whichever way you want to pronounce it. The seventh planet from the Sun, and named after Cronus' father, Uranus or Uranus, whichever way you want to pronounce his name. The literal embodiment of the sky in Greek mythology. We discussed how Cronus overthrew him in a video we talked about a few weeks ago. So let's continue. Now, one of the most notable things you'll notice about Uranus, if you look at it very closely, is that it appears to have a tilt, and it seems to rotate on its side. This is believed to be because of an Earth-sized object hitting it sometime in the past and leaving it currently spinning like this for all of eternity. However, this tilt also has effect on the planet, as it causes Uranus to have the most extreme, seasons in our solar system. Because a quarter of the Uranus year is when the sun shines directly on the pole of one side of it, plunging the other side of the planet into a 21-year-long dark winter. And that's saying something, since it's basically a giant ice block. Well, I say that, but really it's made out of a hot, dense, icy material, water, methane, and ammonia, all above a small rocky core. However, this does not keep it from being considered one of the two ice giants in our solar system, the other one being Neptune. A day on Uranus is 17 hours and 14 minutes, and a year is 84 Earth years. Now, let's move on to the next planet. You guessed it, Neptune, the eighth planet from the Sun, named after the Roman god Neptune of the same name, or as you might know him better or by his Greek name, Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, earthquake, horses, etc. Neptune was actually the first planet discovered using maps due to observable perturbations in the orbit of the planet Uranus. Basically because of the effect it had on Uranus, as we managed to discover it. Interestingly enough, the components that make up Neptune are actually very similar to the components that make up Uranus. In fact, you might say they're very similar. However, one thing that Neptune has that Uranus doesn't have is, unlike Uranus with its lack of atmospheric features, Neptune is a dynamic planet, with several large dark spots which resemble that of Jupiter's big red spot, aka its hurricane-like storm, the largest of which has been named the Great Dark Spot, and is the size of Earth. A day on Neptune is 16 hours and 6 minutes, and a year is 165 Earth years. Now let's go to a planet that's no longer considered a planet and is now considered a dwarf planet, Pluto. Of course named after the Roman god Pluto, or as you may know him better or by his Greek name, Hades, the god of the underworld, and of wealth. Since all the gold and stuff is underground and that's basically his domain in Greek mythology. Interesting thing, Pluto is the only planet named by an 11-year-old girl, aka Miss Venetia Burney Fair, who grew up to become an accountant and taught economics and maths in England. But she will forever be known as the woman who named Pluto at age 11. For a little bit of context, when the planet was discovered, Phoenicia discussed the name of the planet Pluto with her mother and grandfather. Her grandfather, who was friends with astronauts, took the following steps, and long story short, she became known as the girl that named Pluto, completely overshadowing the guy that discovered Pluto, Clyde Tombaugh. Another fascinating thing is that Pluto is actually smaller than our own moon, about 2/3 the diameter of our moon actually. As for what Pluto is made out of, we're not 100% sure because it is very far away from us and it's kind of hard to do research from things that are very far away. But it is believed that Pluto is 70% rock and 30% water ice, with a rock core, with ice made out of carbon monoxide and nitrogen covering the surface. That little heart you see on Pluto, which I always found pretty cute and adorable, is actually made out of frozen nitrogen. During the day, a thin layer of this nitrogen actually turns into vapor, and at night, this vapor condenses and forms back into ice. And if you want, you could think of each of these cycles as a little heartbeat, pumping nitrogen in around the planet. A day on Pluto is 153 hours, while a year is 248 Earth years. Well, that took longer than expected. Anyway, let's get on to our next fact, shall we? Let's get started talking about the sun and our moon in particular. Don't worry, I'll try and make these a little shorter than the planets. Now, let's get started on our sun. As most of you are aware, our sun is a star. Now, there are 7 main types of stars. Those are O, B, A, F, G, K, and M. O's are the bright, hot blue stars. M's are the dim, cool, red stars. Our sun is a G-type star, infamously called a yellow dwarf star. However, despite its name, its color is actually white, since it's basically a combination of all colors and the eyes basically perceive it as white. A lot of you are well aware that our sun is basically a hot ball of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium, 70% hydrogen and 28% helium. But did you know carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen make up 1.5% of it, and the other 0.5% is made up of very small amounts of other elements such as neon, iron, silicon, magnesium, and sulfur? Well, now you know. And now let us move on to our moon. Now, most of you are aware of the phases of the moon, which is where the apparent shape of the moon directly sunlit portion as viewed from Earth. These phases being the new moon, then waxing crescent, then first quarter, then waxing gibbon, then full moon, then waning gibbon, then third quarter, and then finally waning crescent, and the cycle goes over and over. And solar eclipse is where the moon passes between the sun and the earth, casting a shadow on Earth that either blocks out most or the whole sun in some areas. Hence why only some people can see an eclipse on days when they're supposed to happen and other people can't, depending on which part of the world they are. And a lunar eclipse is when the moon moves into the Earth's shadow, causing the moon to become darkened, or red in some cases, in which case we get a blood moon. This is caused because the air molecules in the atmosphere of Earth scatter out most of the blue light, causing the remainder of the light to appear on the moon with a red glow, which of course makes the moon appear red. Of course, the term blood moon also is used to refer to a moon that is red because of dust, smoke, or hazing in the sky. The moon also plays 3 important parts in our planet: time, tide, and light. In terms of time, many animals, usually birds, or mostly birds actually, synchronize to the moon's cycles, basically the time that birds spend in a place and hunt insects. They synchronize their flights so that basically a lot of them take off and start flying off at the same time about 10 days after the full moon. In terms of tide, both the Earth and the moon exert a gravitational pull on each other. On Earth, the moon's gravitational pull causes the tides to bulge, not only on one side but on both sides closest and furthest to the moon. These bulges cause high tide, and the low points are where low tide occur. So as the moon spins around us, it causes the tide to move around with it as well. Now let's move on to our last fact, shall we? For our last fact, we will be talking about the 2 belts in our solar system: the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt. The asteroid belt is a torus-shaped region in our solar system, in between the space between Jupiter and Mars's orbit. It is where most of the asteroids are found orbiting our solar system, and it is believed to be 4.6 billion years old. Scientists believe that asteroids in the asteroid belt are either remains of a planet that was destroyed a long time ago, or made up of bits and pieces of, well, debris that never was able to form into a planet. As for the Kuiper Belt, it is a region of the solar system beyond that of Neptune, believed to hold many comets and asteroids, and many other small bodies made up of mostly ice, such as Pluto, which can be found in this belt. There are also a few other dwarf planets in the Kuiper Belt, but aren't very well known, such as Eris, Haumea, Makemake, and Quaoar. And objects found in the Kuiper Belt are believed to be remnants of the creation of our solar system about 4.6 billion years ago. And with that, that brings us to the end of this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes we do requests, so if you think you wish to know something, be sure to leave it in the comments, and we'll be sure to see if we can make a video on it.